These are the best starting builds for each class in Season 4 of Diablo 4. This is based specifically on builds that can really come online by the time they're level 10, 15, or even 25. Let's get into it. The first class I want to talk about is the Druid. The Lightning Storm Druid is one of the fastest classes I have ever seen coming out the gate. The most important legendary aspect that you need for this one is Shepherds, and that's because Shepherds gives you additional damage for each summon you have, so in reality it's more like the Lightning Storm Summon Druid, but still. This build without any kind of optimizations like stats or anything like that is able to clear almost literally any content in the game in World Tier 1, 2, and even 3 without breaking a single sweat. The fact that you're able to have all of your summons tank for you while also increasing your damage by X amount per active summon is just bananas. Now, the trick with this build that a lot of people don't do is you have to actually channel your Lightning Storm in order for it to expand into more bolts. If you just sit there and click spam it, it'll spam whatever the most recent channeled up to amount is, so it won't actually generate more bolts if you sit there and just spam the living shit out of this button. But you can do that after you've channeled it up to its maximum amount of bolts. Like I said, it gains more the longer you hold the button down, so do this when you're at maximum resource. But otherwise, this build is very simple. You just use all of your companion cooldowns as soon as they're off cooldown, and you go to the fucking moon. Next up, we have the Barbarian. The Whirlwind Barbarian, similar to the Lightning Storm Druid, can clear pretty much anything. It starts to suffer a tiny bit on bosses, but all in all, it is absolutely one of the fastest and best starting builds that you can choose. A couple of the aspects that you want to use to get this off the ground right away at level 25 is whatever the Echoing Fury equivalent is here in Season 4, Bold Chieftain on one of your rings, and Dire Whirlwind. All of these aspects can be obtained as soon as you hit level 25 from various dungeons. Just look up where you find them. This one plays very simply. You just generate your resource based on your shouts, and you can use those offensively or defensively. It doesn't really matter. But then having Lunging Strike as your resource generator and gap closer, you kind of never run out of resource to begin with. So if you really wanted to toe the line, you can go the Unbridled Rage key passive at the end of your talent tree. And you most likely shouldn't see some slowdowns with a lack of resource, but that does help on bosses where the extra damage is really necessary. But in terms of AoE and ease of access, the Whirlwind Barbarian, chef kiss. Next up, we have the Rogue. The Twisting Blades Rogue is an absolute marvel of mechanical engineering. It's really not that deep. It's just everybody that plays one thinks that. But in reality, it is as simple as moving around the battlefield as fast as you can, casting Shadow Imbuement whenever it's off of cooldown, shadow stepping to your opponents, and then just jamming as many Twisting Blades as you can possibly muster. Now, the description I just gave you is every rogue that's ever played this game. But in all seriousness, if you get the Blade Dancers aspect as well as the Edge Masters aspect, you should be able to take out every single thing that you come across in World Tier 1 and World Tier 2. With a few minor stat changes, this absolutely clears World Tier 3, goes into World Tier 4, and can be built into one of the best endgame builds on the planet. In terms of ease of access, this one is a little bit more complicated because you do have to factor in where you stab your Twisting Blades and where you're going to be at when they come back to you and orbit around you. But all in all, this build is nuts, and if I do play a rogue, this is the one that I always go for. Number 4 on this list, we have the Necromancer. The Summon Necromancer is dramatically more powerful than it's ever been in Diablo 4's short 1-year history. And this is because your summons now benefit from most or all of your stats now instead of a fraction or a portion of them. And I'm pretty sure I'm right on that. Feel free to fact check me in the comments. That's totally okay. But with this one, the only couple of aspects that you really need are reanimation. That's going to buff everything, and then hulking, and that's specifically for your golem's cooldown. Now, for ease of access, this is a summon build, so my 1-year-old kid can play this build and absolutely clear, probably faster than my main can because of how strong they are in this season. The Summon Necromancer has no breaks. It doesn't stop for mobs, it doesn't stop for elites, and it sure as hell doesn't stop for bosses. This is one of the best, if not the best, starting build that you can possibly pick. Now, last on the list, we have the Sorcerer, my personal favorite. With the Sorcerer, there's 3 or 4 very good coming out of the gate builds that you can start. Although in Season 4, one of the biggest changes is Frozen Orb now explodes where you click. So that's the one we're going with specifically for Season 4. This is shockingly more powerful than it's ever been before. That little change has done wonders for this. The only few aspects you need are normal ones that you get either way, and those are Storm Swell and Control. The changes this season make Frozen Orb faster than Chain Lightning ever wishes it could be, and I think it's actually faster than my normal starting, which is Firewall Sorcerer, so I'm a little bitter about that. I may end up playing Frozen Orb for starting, we'll see. But all in all, this build is very fast at doing pretty much everything. The only time it does slow down just a little bit is on bosses, and that's only because mana is a little bit of an issue starting out. So obviously things like Prodigy and Umbral, if that's still a thing in Season 4, are some of the best moves you can make in terms of your defensive or supporting aspects. But I do mean it when I say it. This build is extremely fast. It actually put up the same amount of testing time exactly down to the seconds as my Firewall Sorcerer did. So it's kind of crazy. Now, I know this was just a brief rundown of what each class is capable of doing and what you should actually play. I do go into a lot more detail on each one of these things in their own individual videos, and I either have them out already or they're coming very soon in the future. So when I do put them out, I'll have their links added in the description down below, so you'll be able to check them out individually at your own leisure. Now that leads me to my obvious question: what the fuck are you playing this season in Diablo 4? Do me a favor, like this video if you haven't already, and maybe even subscribe, because there's going to be a lot more content that comes out in the future. And if you want to hang out with me live, I do stream here on YouTube at least once a week. The best way to stay keen on what's going on is to pay attention to the announcements tabs in my Discord, and there will again be a link to that in the description down below. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. It means the world to me. And if you're bored, YouTube is going to recommend this next one for you. Happy grinding, travelers, and we'll see you in Sanctuary.